So I'm here today with Lucas, the co-founder and CEO of Jito. Welcome, Lucas.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to talk about MEV today.
And just because you are kind of a bit Twitter famous, like for those who may know you as Buffalu, this is Buffalu, aka Lucas. Um, I'm also excited to chat about MEV. It's a topic that's come up on the podcast like every episode, the last few episodes, and no one seems to know what it is, especially on Solana. And I thought that you're basically the most credentialed person to discuss this topic and to sort of break it down for the people of Solana. So before we kick into the MEV topic and before we kick into Jito and what Jito is up to, can you give us a bit about your background and kind of how you came to be working on MEV on Solana?
Yeah, for sure. So, studied computer engineering in college, focused a lot on like firmware and embedded systems. So, kind of the interface between the software and physical world. So, writing a lot of C, C++. Worked at like Tesla on the Model X, Falcon Wing doors, and anything that like moves or lights up on that car to did robotics for a bit, working on like self-driving construction equipment. Um, so yeah, mostly kind of like a traditional like uh, engineering background, and discovered crypto in like 2017. Kind of just bought at the towards the top of the cycle. Just kind of fell in love with this idea that there are like servers running around the world that you can like upload code to and just like execute code permissionlessly. Like that concept is like really cool as an engineer. So that's kind of like what sucked me in. Stayed throughout the kind of the bear market in like 2018, 2019, late 2020. Discovered MEV. I was doing some research in like protocols. Discovered Dan Robinson's Dark Forest article. It talked about there's basically like bots that are watching the Ethereum mempool looking for opportunities to make money. It's basically like looking to see what other users are trading on and trying to like see if there's any like dollars or even pennies to like extract from those opportunities. So kind of fell in love with it there. Ended up writing a bot on Ethereum to do MEV. Had some good days, had some bad days. And so ended up kind of putting that on the shelf for a bit. Um, then fell into the Solana rabbit hole, did the Solana hackathon, just fell in love with the user experience and figured I wanted to build something on Solana. So, after did a lot of brainstorming, I landed on this idea, this kind of like MEV system, saw the success that Flashbots was having, and then also saw the what was going on with like Polygon and BSC, where there's just a lot of spam and wasted block space as a result of inefficient MEV capture, and kind of had a theory that would happen to Solana. Um, so I ended up meeting up with my co-founder, Segfault Doctor, and we started Jito in like mid 2021.
One question just on your personal background there, on the automated construction robots, was it?
Yeah,
Are you bullish on that? Like, is that actually going to be a thing that's replacing humans in the
100%.
near future? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be. It's very good for very specific things. So like when I was there, we were doing um, like I worked a lot on a bulldozer. So basically, like we my second week there, we bought a bulldozer, and it's like or we borrowed it from a dealership and basically had 2 weeks to figure out like can we actually control this with a computer. So I ended up like ripping apart the cab, finding the joysticks, figuring out like how do the joysticks communicate to this computer that runs this thing, like to go forward or backwards or whatever, um, to like getting to drive it with an Arduino and like a little Xbox controller to like buying the hardware. So like basically went through the whole thing of setting this up to getting it driving autonomously. Um, the I guess circling back to your question, like I think they will be very good at very specific things, at least to start out with. So that company right now is doing like trenching right now. It's like greenfield, like in the middle of nowhere, like these like cornfields trenching for like oil pipeline and uh, solar panel like cabling and stuff like that. So if you're in the middle of nowhere, it's very good. Like you don't have to worry about obstacles. You don't really have to worry about hitting
Mm,
pipes. Um, like if you can imagine, like how do you write an algorithm to like take a scoop of the ground and like detect that there's like a pipe there and like stop? Like
mm,
humans are really good at that, so they don't like burst a pipe. Robots not there yet, but they will be.
mm. Got you.
So it'll be good for greenfield things. It'll be good for like super dangerous things, like maybe super steep slopes, wildfires. Um, if there's like nuclear or like hazardous
Mm.
materials, uh, they'll be very good for those things. They won't be good for like cities and things like that. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, got you. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, we had some terrible fires in Oz a couple of years ago, and it makes perfect sense that, I mean, you see those videos of firefighters driving through, flaming forests, and it's like, why would you
Yeah.
not have AI and self-driving things doing that? Okay,
Yeah.
so with that diversion in mind, let's get into the topic of MEV. So,
Yeah.
firstly, can we kick off and just say, like, what the hell is MEV actually?
Yeah. So MEV, it's started out as minor extractable value. It's kind of gotten rebranded to this like maximum extractable value, just because like there's not every network has miners, but basically it's the value that you can extract by controlling the ordering of transactions. Um, so every network has like validators that are producing blocks or a sequencer or whatever it is, and it's kind of the on most, like on Solana and Ethereum, the leader has kind of a monopoly on producing that block. So they are the only one responsible for producing that block. And the um, basically it's like determining the sequence of events that are recorded on the public ledger. And if there's value in um, ordering those transactions in a way to make more money. So yeah, basically, like if you're a validator or something, you can potentially make more money by running a smarter algorithm or uh, placing trades in a certain order to make more money.
Okay, got you. So you can maybe see some big trade, and the way that you order it and how it relates to other trades can be sort of maximally profitable for the validator, or
Yeah, for the validator and searchers. So
hmm
I guess to give you like a concrete example, um, imagine that you are trading on Solana and you just bought, let's just say you bought like $1 million of Solana using USDC. Well, that pushed the price up on Solana. And let's say you're doing this on Orca. So you just bought a lot of Solana on Orca. Now you bought it on let's just say you bought it on like an AMM or whatever it is on Orca. Chances are it pushed up the price a lot if you bought a lot of it. So now you have a price imbalance where like maybe the price of Solana on Orca is $22. Maybe the price on Radium is $20. So you have this like $2 price difference between the two exchanges. Now, like if a bot were to come in and be immediately behind that trade, they could arbitrage it and even out the prices. Like maybe they buy it on the cheap exchange up to $21, and then they sell it on the Orca exchange from 22 to 21. Now the price is even, and they've made some money. And basically, as a validator, like you are kind of the one that's determining like which arbitrage uh, which arbitrage gets to be behind the $1 million Orca buy. So, someone might, and I guess if validators are, they're running a business, they're economically motivated. And if someone offers you like $100 to place their trade immediately behind the Orca trade, then it's kind of in your best interest to do that.
got you. And in terms of the history of MEV, like my brief knowledge here is that it sort of really kicked off on Ethereum, and a lot of the first research was done on Ethereum, and
Yeah.
I assume it's expanded to other chains, obviously including Solana with Jito.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the first, or one of the, I don't know if this is the first, but one of the major like papers that came out on this was Flash Boys 2.0 from Phil and a few others. Phil's one of the he works at Flashbots, and basically they're studying priority gas auctions and MEV on Ethereum. That's where most of it was taking place. There's probably a little, I don't know how far back it goes. I want to say maybe like 2016, 2017, but it really kicked off when Uniswap came out. There were like a few small dexes on Ethereum before Uniswap, but Uniswap was the one that like really caught on. So when you started having all these coins, or when you started having all these tokens pop up on Uniswap, there started to um, there started to be a lot of MEV on Ethereum, and now everyone knows what MEV is or has the general idea of it. It's present on every blockchain like BSC, Polygon, Solana, and yeah, it's a very wide known thing at this point.
Got you. So I guess we can dive into how MEV on Solana differs to Ethereum. But before we do that, can you give us the intro to Jito?
Yeah. So Jito's building MEV infrastructure on Solana to minimize spam and return value to users. So every network has MEV, and the how do I say this? Like the way that the network chooses what transaction to put in a block is kind of important for looking at how do people actually take advantage of MEV. So I guess like back super quick high level on Ethereum, before Flashbots, all of the transactions were ordered by priority fee first, and then if there was a tie, then I believe it was ordered by time. So um, basically, if you were trying to like front run someone on Ethereum, you would have to bid a higher priority fee than them to get ahead of them in line. And then you started to have bots competing against each other where a bot would try to get ahead of the other bot. So they're bidding higher than the original bot's bidding higher. So that's where the priority gas auction concept comes in. So MEV on Ethereum, pre-flash bots, transactions ordered by priority fee. The best way to extract MEV was kind of spamming higher priority or higher gas until the block was mined. So it's kind of like the negative externality on Ethereum was just a lot of these bids going on. On Solana, the um, transactions are ordered with a combination of like randomness, latency, and first come first serve. And so like when there's a randomness involved, then you have a higher likelihood of getting your transaction in if you spam it. So that's
Mm.
kind of the main thing that we're seeing right now is like there's if it is sending my transaction more than once increases the likelihood to get the ordering that I want, then I'm going to send it like 10 times or 100 times or whatever it is. Because like like if I'm a searcher, I want to make money. So like why would I not do this? So that's kind of like what we're seeing on Solana right now with the spam. So Jito builds software to like attempt to like minimize the spam.
And just because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I can imagine some question marks on people's minds, what is a searcher?
A searcher is someone. It's basically a trader that is looking. Not even trader. It's like a person who writes bots to trade in like what is kind of equivalent to like the high frequency trading on blockchains, like searching. They call it searching for MEV, or like if you're a bot writer that's uh, searching for MEV, then you're a searcher.
Okay, so there's no connection between Jito and searchers. It's like it's anyone can pick it up and permissionlessly write a bot that is then trying to maximize the MEV
Yeah.
that they can earn.
Yeah, so pre-Jito, like, and we're still seeing this too. People are still like writing MEV bots without Jito. Like anyone can write a MEV bot on Solana or any other network, and they're trying to find MEV. And basically, the most common form right now on is arbitrage on Solana. So people are looking for those like price imbalances between exchanges and trying to arbitrage them and make money through that.
Got you. And one thing that, or another area that people might have come up against the term Jito was, with people mentioning Firedancer, then like they talk about validator clients, and then it's,
Yeah.
it's mentioned that Jito also wrote a validator client. My like non-technical understanding is that, you guys were mostly like adapting the existing validator client and making some adjustments for MEV. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we took the Solana Labs validator and just forked it and added a few thousand lines of code. So like 99, probably over 99% of it is Solana Labs code. We basically just added a new way for the validator. Like the validator needs to understand how to interpret bundles, which we can dive into in a second. And
Mm-hmm.
then it needs to have some other functionality related to like capturing MEV and distributing the MEV as well.
Got you. So you mentioned that at least the previous way that MEV was performed on Ethereum was by having like priority fees. And so how is MEV working on Solana currently?
Yeah. So MEV on Solana, there's a few, there's I think roughly 100 or more unique searchers every day. And basically they're looking for, they're basically monitoring what transactions are being executed. And um, when a transaction's executed, they check the prices after that transaction was executed. And if they see a price indifference, then they run some algorithm to determine if there's an arbitrage or not. And if there's an arbitrage, they will build a transaction to take advantage of it and then send it to the validator to be executed.
Is it still pretty immature? Because I noticed during the USD, I think it was during the USDC DPEG, or it might have been during a Solana like Sol crash, that the M Sol was like super depegged off Sol. Is that like
Yeah.
when something like that happens? Is that like because our infrastructure or ecosystem of arbitraging and searches is not developed enough, or is that just like the market kind of pushing through the price?
So it's just like in the like MSOL case, it's just the market pushing through the price. I guess
Right.
on that specific case, it takes like roughly 2 days to unstake a stake account. You can also like deposit a stake account into a stake pool, mint the liquid staking token, and then sell it on the market. So I think what you had was people like destaking and rushing to sell the soul in hopes to
Hmm.
like buy back cheaper.
Got you. Okay, so it was like a market dynamic. Um, with so you were saying that
Yep.
there's about around 100 searches. Uh,
Mm,
with regard to like bundles, how does that
yeah.
play into the MEV factor or into the Jito validator?
Yeah. So um a lot of like when I was talking about MEV earlier, a lot of these things it's like when you're talking about priority gas auctions, um what searchers want to do is land like I want my trade to land before this thing or I want my trade to land after this thing. A lot of the times the ordering is relative to something else. And the best way to express that on Ethereum to land before something was like a priority gas auction or like bidding up the gas price. Um, on Solana, if you want to land before or after, mainly after right now, another transaction, the best way to do that is spamming. There's no I guess like before Jito, there's no efficient way to say I want to land after this thing. So bundles essentially let you do that. And the way it works is there's a few products that are like working here together. Basically, we have Jito Solana, which we talked about earlier. It's a validator client and knows how to process bundles. Currently, around 26% of Solana stake is running Jito Solana. So it's like essentially 1 in 4 blocks are produced by a Jito Solana leader. There's the block engine, which is basically kind of like an interface between validators and searchers, and it simulates bundles that searchers are submitting and figures out how to make the most money for the validator and do it in the most efficient way possible. So not waste block space or not allow spam to get through. And then there's the relayer as well, which essentially sends users trades or like users transactions to searchers and it allows them to like potentially bundle these things. It's basically like the new kind of workflow for a searcher is like you can listen to these transactions that are coming into the network and basically take them and like simulate them and figure out what the state's going to be. And then you can like attach your arbitrage or your trade to the other trade in a bundle and send it to the block engine. Block engine will do the simulation and then send it to the validator, and the validator will make more money.
Got you. And on Ethereum, I'm not aware of the details of how these things work, but I'm aware that there's things like sandwich attacks. Is MEV on Solana sort of like, is it PvP against the general user, or like who's winning and who's losing in that interaction?
That's that's a loaded question. I mean, I think like protocols.
Is it a pure win-win?
Yeah. I mean, I think like it depends on the type of MEV. I think they're, for the most part, I feel like people have this like negative connotation around MEV. Like you hear about sandwiching a lot with respect to MEV, and it gives people this like negative kind of like, it's like people think all MEV is sandwiching, but sandwiching is just a very small part of MEV. There's like arbitrage and liquidations and things that like without arbitrage, like users wouldn't get the best price across exchanges. And like protocols require MEV to function. So I'd say for the most part, it's like a win-win for everyone, but there's certainly cases and like certain types of MEV where it might be less ideal for the user.
Got you.
And then we also do see like there's some PvP against searchers specifically. I mean, I think Ethereum has this issue too with like, we saw like a massive unbundling attack the other week on Ethereum, where I guess that was like validator versus searcher. We see like searcher versus searcher stuff on Ethereum where with like salmonella, where basically searchers are like trying to bait other searchers into like stealing money. We see some of it on Solana too, where like searchers are like kind of attacking other searchers' accounts to get them to like respond slower.
Is it like an exciting area to work? I mean, it kind of sounds like
I love it.
like a video game or something.
Yeah,
with the way that different teams are like launching different attacks upon each other.
Yeah, that's kind of what like made me fall in love with it. I feel like there's just people are always like, you can't just write a bot and expect that it's going to make money forever. Like people will eventually catch on to your alpha and then you'll have to tweak it. Maybe you make it faster, or you like, we have some searchers, we have the Jito Explorer, explorer.jito.wtf, where we label arbitrages, and we have some searchers that are like, they like reverse engineered how our arbitrage algorithm works and like are like hiding arbitrages from our page to like preserve alpha. So you just have like a lot of like super smart engineers that are like being super creative and like trying to find ways to make money. And yeah, like if you like listen, if you just like watch the arbitrage stream on the website or like view what's happening on chain, it's like there's like you're like, oh, Solana like it's doing a few thousand transactions per second. That's pretty cool. But then when you like actually look at all the transactions and like dig into it more, it's like, oh, there's like tens to hundreds of bots competing against each other and like developing all these like cool algorithms and like latency improvements and things like that to win money. And I find that
Yeah,
super
one
interesting.
one note that I think was really widely shared on Twitter, and I'll put it in the show notes. But it was like when I think it was two MEV competitors on ETH, and then one of them like threw in the towel and like wrote on chain like it's been good fighting you like, which was
Yeah.
nice to see. Um,
Yeah.
and one other question is um, with with regard to the validator client, I assume that you have to kind of convince validators to actually use the client. So how is the
Yeah.
adoption running so far for the Jito client?
Yeah, it was super hard at first. I talked about this in another podcast, but basically like uh there's like a chicken and egg problem at first where um we like whenever it started it had like 4 or 5% of stake, and we would talk to validators and they would be like, oh, this is cool, but like no one's running it, and like also like how much money can I make off of it? It's like, well, there's not really like basically zero right now because no searchers are using it. And you go to searchers, it's like, hey, you can use bundles and like more efficiently capture MEV and like win these trades more frequently. Like you guys should use it. It's like, well, how much stake do you have? Well, we have 5% of stake. It's like, okay, well, that's like, do I spend my time writing this for 5% of stake, or do I spend my time optimizing my bot for the other 95% of stake where I can't use bundles? So I was like really rough at first, but we found a few like early believers in what we were doing. I think luckily we can like point to the Ethereum ecosystem, which is probably at least today, like a few, maybe like 1 or 2 years ahead of where Solana MEV is, and say like, hey, like look at Ethereum, look at like the positive impact that this has had on the network. Look at validators care about money, so like look at how much money these people are making, and luckily we got a few early buy-in from that, and then we had some early beta testers for searchers and they've provided a lot of valuable feedback. So I feel like we're finally like getting past the hopefully past the chicken and egg thing where like now we have like over 10 or 20 searchers using the system on a daily basis, and like the last week the system has made 130 Solon tips, um, and 26% of the network is running Jito Solana. So I think
Twenty
it's
six
it's getting
percent.
better.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, there's still like, I think I was doing the math the other day. Like the amount of tips are definitely still low, and maybe don't make a huge difference to validators. But I think as more searchers get on board and more stake gets on board, then the snowball will like get more inertia to it.
Got you. And one thing I wanted to pick up on about what you said before with, having many different bots competing, there's like a common debate or argument you'll see on crypto Twitter around, how many Solana transactions are real transactions, how much network usage is there actually. Do you have
Yeah.
any take there? Like, should the fact that the network is very cheap and a lot of bots can make use of it, like is that a negative in some senses, or how do you see that debate?
I think it's probably like uh yeah, let me think about that one. I guess like um if you have cheaper fees, there's going to be more opportunities for bots to make money. Like with a, let's just say like the swap on Ethereum is anywhere from like $10 to $50. Any arbitrage or like money making opportunity under $50, a bot's not gonna send a transaction for because they're losing money. So when you have fees that are like a hundredth of a penny, then there's going to be a lot more bot related transactions. Um, but also like that means that prices are better for users because the prices will be like equalized between exchanges. So I think it's like, I don't know if I have a take on like whether a lot of, I feel like more bots is better, but at the same time, like if those bots are inefficiently capturing those opportunities, then it can be bad for the network.
Okay, so
Um,
in short, many bots, but well tuned bots that deliver really good prices to the end users is sort of the ideal case.
yeah, I mean, I think Solana could certainly get more users. I don't think that like anyone's uh,
Against more
satisfied. I guess
users.
you can never be satisfied with like the number of users using these things, especially this early
Right.
on.
Right.
More users is certainly better, but I don't really get into those arguments on Twitter or anything
Yeah.
about is it good or bad.
Lucas, it's a much better decision to not get into those arguments.
Yeah.
um, okay, so then let's move on to Jito Sol. So when the user stakes Sol with Jito, you get a. I'll let you explain it actually. What is Jito Sol?
Yeah. So Jito Sol is a liquid staking token that we contribute to, and liquid staking token essentially lets you. I guess let me back up. So it's a liquid staking token. When you stake on Ethereum or Solana and most other proof of stake networks, you on Solana you delegate your soul to a validator. So you basically put in a stake account and say, I want this stake to. I'm basically giving my stake or like lending it to this validator, and while you're doing that, that stake is locked up. So you can't actually like use it in DeFi or like use it, like you can't provide liquidity with it or anything like that. So, liquid staking token basically will let you stake assets and then you get a token or like you could think of it kind of like a ticket in return in the form of a token. And that basically lets you use your staked SOL in DeFi. So you can deposit SOL into a stake pool, mint a liquid staking token. That SOL that you deposited is then staked to a validator by the stake pool, and it's earning yield from like inflation and MEV and all of that. And you have this token that is kind of increasing in value from the SOL that's staked in there. Then you can take that token and go use it in DeFi. So you can provide liquidity on an AMM. You could like do borrow and lending. You could sell it if you wanted to. It's kind of like whatever you want to do with it, you can do.
And we've had like LSTs for quite a while on Solana. I think it's more of a recent thing on ETH after the merge. And they're very excited about it now, but we've had it for a while in Solana, and there's certainly some use cases across the DeFi landscape. You can see that there's opportunities for lending and putting it into a pool, issuing liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, like we haven't seen LSTs get adopted for payments instead of normal Solana, or it feels like the use case hasn't quite blossomed yet. Do you have the same perception? And is there other
Yeah,
areas that you can imagine it being used?
definitely. Yeah, if you look at Ethereum, I guess Lido's been around since I don't know when Lido was made. Like maybe I'm pretty sure it was before Solana was even like a net, like a had mainnet. But
Yeah.
Lido, at least currently today, the staked ETH, or if you see like ST ETH, that's like one of the first. Maybe I don't know if it's the first, but it's one of the first liquid staking tokens. And um, the stake rate on Ethereum is like 16% or roughly around there. And
Mm.
Lido has I think 30 or 40% of all 30 or 40% of all staked ETH is on Lido. I guess liquid staking as a whole, it's probably like above 50-60% if I had to guess, because you have like Coinbase ETH and Rocket Pool and a few others. On Solana, the stake rate is way higher. It's like roughly 70%. So 70% versus 16% on Ethereum. All liquid staked assets on Solana is under 2% of the stake of all staked assets on Solana.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of SOL that's staked in liquid staking on Solana is still extremely small, and there's a huge potential for like more adoption on the liquid staking side on Solana.
So you said 16% of staked ETH is liquid staking. Is that, or roughly 16%?
16% of all circulating ETH is staked,
okay.
compared to
Gotcha.
70% on Solana. And then I think roughly 30% of the 16% on Ethereum is Lido. There's a few other competitors in there as well. But I guess the percentage of liquid staked assets on Ethereum is way higher than Solana.
Gotcha. Because it makes me think like there's a lot of critique about Solana, particularly DeFi, about not having much TVL. And so you can see there, even moving 2% to 10% would already increase the TVL by quite a bit for those protocols that would be, for those liquid staking protocols.
Yeah.
So
I think, increasing it would, it would increase the TVL just from like the liquid staked assets, but then there's also like downstream effects. Like people will take that liquid stake SOL and maybe they'll put it into Orca or put it into some DeFi protocol, and now there's like more liquidity to trade SOL or trade these like liquid staked assets, and there's just a lot of like composability that you can unlock with these liquid stake tokens. That I think is super
unpopular opinion here, but I never quite understood the hate for what the Saber guys did, because that is essentially DeFi, like composable DeFi. Like you reuse different tokens to make it maximally efficient, and then somehow I think it was just the fact that there was like a calculated plan that made it really taste very bad. But in general, if you stake with Marinade and then you put your MSOL into a pool and then you mint a stable coin off that pool token. Like, I mean, this is kind of all really cool and maximally efficient. So, would love to see that more across the Solana ecosystem and see, more protocols using the stake tokens. And if you're listening and you're not liquid staking, would love to hear why you're not liquid staking. And, you should definitely consider it. Moving on, I mentioned Firedancer briefly earlier. So for the folks who are not familiar, this is a third validator client and the first non-Solana Labs validator client, which is being built from the ground up by the Jump Crypto team. I'm curious, like, what impact it has on Jito, and how you see that playing out once they go live.
Yeah. So I guess a quick overview of Firedancer. Basically, they are working on another validator implementation in C. And the reason for that is to have more validator client diversity, and then also have a different software supply chain. I guess there's a few reasons. Diversity, different software supply chain. It's like the Jito Solana validator and Solana Labs validator, they both import, like let's just say like a JSON RPC library. And if that JSON RPC library gets compromised, then that could have a bad impact on the network. So by having a different validator client in a different language, you kind of have a different dependency tree for the same functionality in Firedancer. And then also like the code's written differently. It's not like a one-for-one like, oh, this is the for loop in the validator. In Rust, we're just going to copy and paste that into C and call it a day. It's like the way that they're writing the algorithms are different in Firedancer, so it should provide a little more robustness. Obviously, Jump has a lot of experience trading, doing high frequency trading. They think a lot about computer architecture when they are writing these algorithms. They're like very close to the metal. As a embedded software engineer, I was doing a lot of like register level, like bits and like super close to the like memory and the physical components on the processor. And those are the same things Jump is thinking about when they're writing the Firedancer validator. So like, how do we leverage like the memory layout in what algorithms run on what cores to leverage the speed of light between the core and that memory and ensure that we're like not having like memory thrashing and other stuff to slow it down. Um, yeah, I could go on all day about this, but just a bunch of badass engineers like that are
Yeah.
writing like very optimized code. As far as like Jito, I think that like when the Firedancer validator comes closer to being live, we'll build like a similar version of the software for Firedancer. So it will know how to do similar things to the Jito. It'll know how to do similar things to what the Jito Solana validator does. So when that's closer, we'll take a look at the code and already kind of working to influence some of the API design and things like that as Firedancer is being built, so that when it's closer to being done, we can just plug and play on it.
One question that I've seen popping up on Twitter sometimes, and it kind of also popped into my head when I saw how performant Firedancer was. Like, it looks like it'll be incredibly performant. Like, the demos that Kevin Bowers did at Breakpoint already back in November was showing like insane throughput increases on the current client.
Yeah.
So one question there is like one of the biggest benefits you said is diversity of clients. If the Firedancer client is just so much better, why would anyone run anything but the Firedancer client? And then don't we also then go back to having a
Yeah.
single client?
Yeah. I mean, there is certainly a chance that happens, um, which I feel like maybe isn't being discussed enough. I think that uh, there, yeah, I mean, I think that like there's a few reasons why you would run the Firedancer client. One is that I think it could just comes down to like time and money for validator operators. So is running this client going to save me time from like a reliability standpoint or like a maintenance standpoint or monitoring? Like how much DevOps do I need to run this? How much time do I need to spend running this? Does it kind of just run itself? And then the money standpoint. So will it make me money or will it save me money? I guess like
Mm,
if it'll make me money, maybe it processes transactions faster. It knows how to like sort through them better and make you more money. Maybe there's like other things that they can do to make you more money. Or there's like the save money standpoint where like a lot of the demos that they've shown are like super impressive. Like, like certain parts of the pipeline can do 1 million transactions per second. And
insane.
the network is nowhere near that. And they're running on like commodity hardware. So can I take my current server that I'm running my validator on, downgrade it to something way cheaper and run Firedancer?
Mm.
That would be a way for me to like save money. So I think that those are kind of reasons that you would run it. Um, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see like what happens and what the network does when Firedancer comes out, um, and how that kind of impacts the current Rust validator.
I guess Anatoly always says, it's like what is it, fire driven development. So this is like a horizon problem. There's many more burning issues currently to tackle, but it'll be curious to see how that shakes out.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
curious to
I'm
get.
excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm curious to get your take, like zooming out from MEV, from Solana validators, like more widely. If we look at crypto as a whole, you've been in crypto for some years now. Um, And this question is kind of coming a bit from the angle of AI lately. We've been seeing a lot of AI adoption very quickly. So I'm curious to get your prediction. Like, do you expect crypto to hit mainstream adoption in the next years? And if you do, where would you see the source of that mainstream adoption coming first?
Yeah, I think um, it's probably going to take a few more years until it hits mainstream adoption to where people are using it every day. Um, I guess this is kind of like backing up into like my history. I think this is why I kind of fell in love with Solana in the first place. For a few reasons. One is just it's super fast. Like when you use Ethereum and like go on Uniswap or 1inch and you make a swap, it can take like uh, anywhere from several seconds to several minutes for your swap to land, and that's just like not a good experience for like the average person. I think Ethereum's makes sense for certain things, but like for mass adoption, it's just not going to work. Where Solana, it's like your transaction, you get the notification in less than a second. It's like using like Twitter or Facebook. Like I post something on Twitter and like it's posted immediately. I don't have to like wait for it to like send. Um, so just like the fact that things just happen so fast on Solana, I think was a reason for um, I guess it's like a technical barrier for mainstream adoption. I think the other thing, like what will push us mainstream, I think just like uh, I feel like it's either going to be like games or social, and I think that's another interesting thing about Solana. Like, no one's going to use Ethereum for a game. It's like way too expensive. Basically, every action that you perform on Ethereum, you do for financial reasons because it's so expensive. Whatever you're doing is like you're thinking that it's going to make you back the gas fees that you pay. Where on Solana, it's like a hundredth of a penny. Like no one really cares about spending a hundredth of a penny. So not everything has to be financial related. So you can actually have games or social media type things. So yeah, I think like the things that'll push mainstream are probably like social or games. I think there's also like a strong chance that it's like financial related as well, and like DeFi is certainly in that bucket. I think it'll just be interesting to see with like the what's going on like on a macro scale between like inflation in the United States and the bank troubles and also inflation in other countries. And I guess there's just like a lot of uncertainty right now that could potentially drive more people on chain to kind of escape whatever they're dealing with on like a financial basis. Um, so yeah, I guess that's kind of my ramblings about what will bring mainstream adoption.
Yeah, no, I really like that, and definitely accord with a lot of that. Unfortunately, we just haven't seen good social apps so far, and I won't count Lens because I mean a good social app should be really sticky and actually getting a lot of adoption quickly. And the existing
Yeah,
ones just seem like social made by engineers or nerds that don't really understand what makes an app really sticky. So
yeah,
hopefully as the tech gets better. I interviewed Shek from Gum recently, and like it's these kinds of building blocks that I think will help make sticky apps and actually unlock them. But yeah, definitely worth watching that space for sure. And I know that Solana Labs or Solana Foundation, I never know quite where they start and stop, but I know that they have a big focus on games this year. So I'm really keen to see. And actually, one other point: the at the Hacker House in Lisbon prior to Breakpoint, there was a games day, and it was really impressive. Like there was some really like legitimately cool games that even if you're not into blockchain, you would think were cool. So yeah,
yeah,
really pumped to see what can roll out there. And I know that building good games takes time, but hopefully this
yeah,
year we start to see some rolling off the production block.
yeah, for sure. I think social. I mean, even just like traditional social company, like media companies, are just like really hard to bootstrap and get started. And it's got to be like I don't think people really care if it's on a blockchain or not. Like you just need to
No.
make something that's like so much better than whatever exists, and people will hopefully if you build a good enough game or a good enough like social media application, people will just use it and they don't really care if it's on a blockchain or not.
It's again the people who would be interested in social will probably be people again in the same way with like currencies and P2P peer-to-peer payments. It will again probably be people who are in like troubling jurisdictions where they have not much access to ways to communicate. Like we've
Yeah.
seen, in certain countries, Telegram or WhatsApp really taking off. Maybe not so much WhatsApp, but Telegram, because it was more private. I'm actually not sure how private it is, but at least the perception was there that it was very private. So I could potentially see there being some unlocks there for people with governments that want to stop them communicating with each other. Um,
Yeah.
one last question before I let you go, Lucas, because we're hitting time soon. Um, as you've been on the crypto journey, you were working in some pretty interesting companies prior to that. Have there been any like books, articles, videos that really influenced the way that you think about crypto and about building in the crypto environment?
um I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think like I've been in startups before, so I think like learned a lot of lessons there and saw some mistakes. Also like made a
Mm.
lot of mistakes myself. I think every uh like everyone thinks that companies are like sexy. Like I guess like when I was at Tesla, like people are like, oh, Tesla's like a cool, sexy company. Like must be super cool. It's like it was like a total shit show and like chaos and like I think every crypto company like has like a shiny outside, but it's like stressful and chaos and on the inside. So learned a
Yeah.
lot, just like roll with the punches, and then I think just like have really good investors and like other founders in my network. So I definitely think if you're building a crypto company, like definitely connect with other founders and you can share ideas and things that have worked and things that haven't. And can also like lean on your investors for some advice as well. But I think the best way is just to like dive in and start making mistakes and learn the hard way. People will tell you what to do and you'll probably ignore them. And you just have to learn the hard way, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good. If you're
Yeah.
building in the hackathons, make a Twitter, reach out to people. People in
Yeah.
Solana are very, very approachable in general. So, don't be afraid to just reach out. And the worst thing that happens is you don't get an answer, but usually they'll answer.
Yeah. I think that's like, that's some other really good advice. Like um, everyone starts on Twitter, like building in the space, and they're just kind of like lurking on Twitter. Like the best way to get engaged and like start to grow a following is like to start asking questions and connect with people in the space and like ask questions on other people's tweets and just like always be curious and then like also like post some of your own ideas or opinions or some people just shit post too, like that's fine. But
All welcome.
that's a good way to like grow a network and um, make connections and get like your name out there.
Alrighty, perfect. Then thanks so much for coming on, Lucas. It's been a real pleasure to dive into the dark forest, I think it's called, of MEV, and to learn, what's happening on Solana. We'll be definitely want to have you back on, as we approach Firedancer coming out later in the year, to get your take on
For
that. That
sure.
would be awesome. And
Yeah.
wishing you guys and the Jito boys and girls, success in the future months to get that stake percentage up much higher.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Alrighty.